Hey students, Mark Ferrier here, and this video is going to go over the comparative analysis essay. So what you want to be thinking about here is this comparative analysis aspect of the assignment. So let's scroll down and take a look what we're doing here. Again, we're in that 750 to 1250 range, and the purpose is to help develop argumentation, critical thinking, writing, and persuasive skills and create that polished level college argument, all right? So when we're doing this assignment, note the note here. It's not just a comparison. You're not just saying, here's what's similar, here's what's different. A comparative analysis and what you're doing needs to focus not just on the similarities and differences being compared, but how do the similarities and differences between the two things you've chosen, how do they clarify, amplify, and advance a unified message? All right, so basically what this is saying is you're choosing two things to compare for your analysis. How does looking at these two things or considering these two things help uncover and advance a message that's more effective? Meaning you'll have one thing that has its message, you have another thing has its message, but when we consider these two things and combine them, they amplify a singular message. That's what your task is here, to assess and analyze that unification that happens through this split between the similarities and differences. So, why? Comparing important features of work, asking questions about them, this all helps us develop the reasoning needed to formulate our own ideas. Now here's the instructions. What you're going to do is you're going to choose what are called two artifacts. In this case, an artifact is just a thing. All right, a person, place, or thing, something, just a way to consider that you're comparing two different things. So your first thing, your first artifact is a public service announcement. Then you're going to choose a second thing, a second artifact to compare with that public service announcement. All right, so the essay is going to build on those skills that we started doing with the close reading essay where you looked at a PSA. So to prepare, here's what you're going to do. First, you're going to choose a public service announcement from those close reading essay assignments. All right, so when you click on this link, that's going to bring you back to those PSA options, the public service options. So you have one of these four links you can kind of go through. You may choose the same one that you did your close reading essay on. That's fine, not a problem, but there are, you see here, several different public service announcements. If you would like to choose one of your own, then just let me know and I'll take a look at it, but try to stick with one of these. Okay, so that's your first tack. Choose a public service announcement as your first artifact, your first thing you're going to compare. So what you want to be thinking about here is that specific element or idea similar to what you looked at in your close reading, and then now how is this going to overlap and intersect with a second artifact? All right, so now you've chosen that public service announcement. The next thing you want to do is understand that that public service announcement, that's your first artifact. Now you're going to need to choose a second artifact, a something, a person, place, or thing that will, this is going to be referred to, as I've been saying, right, the artifact, your second artifact. So remember, first artifact, PSA. Now, look for an artifact for your second artifact. Look for a person, place, or thing, someone giving or something giving or delivering a specific climate change, environmental protection message. All right, so when you're looking for a second artifact, think about if you want to do an artwork or a song, how does that evoke a message? How does a building or public space with a specific climate environment have a purpose? How does an interview or speech deliver similarly a specific message about climate change? The key here is you want to think of a way of how something is evoking a message, because you're going to compare the message from your second artifact that you choose with the first artifact of the PSA. Okay, now you've got several options for what to choose for your second artifact after you've chosen the PSA as the first artifact. What you can do here, I'll run through these. On your own, you can, for your second artifact, visit an actual physical location that you want to compare to the PSA. So remember, this should be something dealing with climate change or environmental messaging. For example, it could be a it could be a recycling site or a sustainable park, something like that. This can be a building, facility, public space, park, an object in a building or public space, or a location related to climate change in the environment. That's one choice. You can also decide to interview a person or a specialist with expertise in or professional involvement with climate change or environmental protection. So you can conduct a brief email. It can be over interview, over Zoom, or in person. That could be your second artifact that you're going to compare to the PSA. You can also locate an existing artifact that is virtual and online and freely accessible. And I'll talk about those as my instructor provided ones, but you can do this on your own, right? Just make sure if you find something, it shouldn't be behind a paywall, doesn't require sign-in or login credentials. But locate something, a person, place, or thing, well, probably not a person, maybe it is a person, so a person, place, or thing that's freely accessible, either virtually or online, that it deals with that climate change environmental messaging. So those are some things you can do on your own for this comparative essay to find something to compare with the PSA. Now, you can also, if you don't want to go and find something on your own, you're like, just please, I've got the PSA chosen, give me something to compare with. You're in luck, because I have here the second artifact options for the comparative essay assignment is built in to be able to do this. So if you remember, you started thinking about this in the PSA, so if you want something for me to provide you to compare with the PSA that you've chosen, click on this link right here, second artifact options for PSA. And what you'll see here is a long list of different things. I'm not going to go through all these, but I'll broadly kind of summarize them. But remember here, what you are doing is you want to choose something where you can compare the messaging of both. So when I say both, the messaging of what you choose and the messaging of that PSA. All right, so let's get to it. Analyze and compare any of the following. A brief link here, some of the things I've already said, right? Find something that clarifies or amplifies or advances a unified message when we look at these things together. All right, comparing them together. Online museums, museum campaigns. Here's a few museums that have different messaging, and you can kind of click through and decide what you want to choose. University of Arizona's Biosphere 2, there's Arizona State University Art Museum Initiative, and several others. So you can look through those. Additionally, here's some other sites for things that you can choose. Let's say you want just a list of climate change articles. You can compare the message from that article to, let's click on one as an example. Let's say you want to compare the message on this study that identifies 63 effective policies to climate change. You want to compare the message either of one of those policies or this article to your PSA. Go for it. You have lots of different choices here for different things to compare to your PSA. All right, so let's go back to close that link. Let's go back to the second artifact options. In addition to those useful sites, here's something on disability and climate change, which might interest you. European Parliament Climate Change Challenges article. There's a bulletin of the atomic scientists articles, right? All of this is just messaging that you can look at and think about in comparing to your PSA that you've chosen. All right. And then lastly, if you want to compare the messaging from poems or short story, I've linked to a few. If you know one that's freely accessible to all of us, you may do that as well. But here's sort of 10 poems about climate change. And then here are a few collections. So let's look at The Weight of Light. This is a PDF book. But if you click on, let's see here, let's see, get the book, it will bring you to a Dropbox file. And then you'll see a link to different stories here, table of contents, and different stories in here about, let's just click on one of them, about climate change and the environment. All right, so that's another option here. Poetry, short stories, useful sites, anything you want to compare to the messaging. So let's go back to the assignment. So once you've done that, either instructor provided or on your own, you found your first two artifacts, the PSA and the second person, place, or thing. Those are your two artifacts. Now, what you're going to do is, in your comparison, if you want some help writing comparative analysis, you can click on this link right here. That will bring you to another link with additional resources if you want some more help trying to understand the nuances of the comparative essay. These are really short readings. I really like them if you want a refresher or a review on the key highlights about comparative essay writing. Then go ahead and take a look at these. They also give you some help on structure as well. Okay, you have your two ideas, your PSA and second artifact. Now you want to start thinking about how can you compare these with consideration of the similarities and differences in the message of both artifacts and how that message is amplified or advanced when we consider these together. So here are the things that you should do and write in your body paragraphs. You should have that introductory paragraph, a thesis that tells us what your argument is going to be for what happens to the messaging when we look at these together. And then in your body paragraphs, what you should be doing is describe each artifact in detail, relevant to your comparison, right? So tell us what it is, the similarities and differences. And then once you've done that, you want to tell us what happens when we do consider both of these together, and how does that happen? How do the messages converge or align to help advance a shared idea or argument? All right, that's your goal with this comparative analysis. And you can just write, if you wanted to, start by writing one paragraph on each of these, and that'll get you up to like 5 or 6 paragraphs, which should be plenty for this essay. You want to conclude with a focus paragraph that acts as a summary, and then make sure you're following MLA style and grammar as required in this class. Here's some samples down here if you need them, but otherwise that kind of brings us to the end of this video on how to write the comparative analysis essay. If you have a question about this or anything else, let me know.